Welcome to Life Stories, where one voicemail shattered a lifetime of silence. Imagine giving everything your name, your loyalty, your future to a family that never truly saw you. Then one evening, out of nowhere, your father calls and tells you not to come home. No reason, no goodbye, just, we're cutting ties. But what if that rejection wasn't the end of your story, but the moment you finally took it back? This isn't a story about revenge. It's about a quiet kind of strength, the kind that builds in the background, unnoticed, until the moment it says, enough. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or used for your silence, this story will speak to something deep inside you. Let me take you into the life of Avery Sloan and the quiet rebellion that changed everything. The message came at 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday. No greeting, no explanation, just my father's voice, measured, clipped, sterile, as if he were reading from a quarterly earnings statement. Don't bother coming to the family reunion. We're cutting ties. Then a click. 18 words. 18 syllables, if you count the breath before the silence. I played it back once, not because I didn't understand, but because some part of me expected to feel more. Anger, grief, that old, brittle ache of abandonment. Instead, there was nothing. Just a stillness so complete it felt almost familiar, like my body had been bracing for this very moment for years. My name is Avery Sloan. I'm the youngest child of Martin Sloan, the founder of Sloan Automotive, a regional auto chain born from one man's obsession with control and chrome. My brother Logan is the son he always wanted, magnetic, loud, reckless, in that way people mistake for vision. I was the one who balanced the books, tracked the shipments, ran payroll from a laptop in a hotel lobby, while Logan gave a speech about brand identity. I kept things from falling apart, quietly, invisibly. I didn't call back that night. I didn't ask why. I didn't even forward the voicemail to my mother, Diane, who had long ago taught herself the art of vanishing inside her role, hosting company dinners with a polished smile, whispering in the kitchen afterward, "Your father's building something for all of us. Be grateful, sweetheart." I wanted to be. I really did. Instead, I opened my laptop, signed into a loan portal I hadn't touched in months, and did the one thing they never expected. I removed my name. No anger, no revenge, just clarity. 2 years earlier, when Sloan Automotive needed a $2.5 million expansion loan, the bank had asked for a secondary applicant. Logan was drowning in debt. Martin refused to risk his assets. I Harvard MBA, perfect credit, was the answer. They didn't plead, they just handed me the pen. Back then, I thought loyalty was the currency of belonging, that if I showed I was dependable, essential, they'd stop treating me like a contingency plan. But that voicemail didn't cut me off. It confirmed what I'd always known. I was never truly part of the family business. I was just holding up one of its crumbling walls. Martin Sloan didn't love order. He loved control. He built Sloan Automotive like he built our family home, brick by brick, rule by rule, no room for softness. The garage came first. The family came second, sometimes third. His motto, printed on company letterhead, repeated at dinner tables and quarterly retreats, was simple. We don't hire outsiders. We raise replacements. Logan fit that mold. I just filled in the cracks. By 12, I was inputting tire orders into QuickBooks. By 16, managing vendor accounts. Spring breaks were for filing taxes, not college tours. I didn't ask. I was told. And I told myself it was love, structured, demanding, masculine love. The first real crack came during a budget meeting. Just the three of us. I flagged a $12,000 invoice, same vendor, triple billed over 3 months. Logan laughed. "That's from a buddy of mine," he said, brushing invisible lint from his jacket. "Let it slide. He comps us in other places." I looked to my father, expecting at least a raised brow. Instead, he sipped his coffee and said, "Focus on the big picture, Avery. Stop acting like an outsider." Outsider. That word didn't just sting. It sunk. I wasn't a stranger. I had built the logistics backbone of 4 site expansions, saved them 6 figures in renegotiated fleet leases, balanced payroll through 2 supply chain collapses. But the moment I questioned a shady invoice, I became foreign. That week, access to systems started disappearing. The dashboard showed a read-only message. My company card expired and wasn't reissued. When I asked, the answers were vague. Restructuring, temporary changes, Nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Logan got a company-paid Vegas retreat and a new ergonomic chair that cost more than my first car. That's when I started the archive. At night, I backed up files, expense reports, emails where Logan copied clients but used my name to authorize deals, invoices I never signed. I called it Shadow Ledger, not knowing yet if I was preparing for a lawsuit or just documenting my own erasure. Then came the credit alert. A line item flagged from an old shell corporation, Sloan Holdings, a ghost account. Buried in those records was a truth uglier than I imagined. The loan I had co-signed, 3 months in arrears. My name, the one they had tried to erase, was the reason the bank hadn't called it in. I was the shield. It wasn't mismanagement. It was orchestration. I met with Jules Merritt, a friend from law school. I didn't give her everything, just enough to ask, if I withdraw from a loan I co-signed, what happens? Her answer, depends. If you're not a guarantor and haven't been part of the misuse, you can walk, quietly, legally. I remember the chill that ran through me. Not fear, recognition. They had weaponized my loyalty, and I had one weapon left, my name. That night, I renamed the folder, no longer Shadow Ledger. Now, redemption plan. Inside, PDFs, flagged emails, screenshots, and a letter. A clean, surgical withdrawal, drafted weeks ago and signed just in case. I hadn't known when I'd use it. Only that one day, I would. It took 4 minutes. I logged into the loan portal using administrative credentials I had created 2 years ago, back when they still trusted me. I clicked Remove Co-Applicant, uploaded the letter, typed my PIN. No warning, no confirmation, just a soft gray message, update received, compliance review pending. Then I sent a final email to Keith Herner, the bank's loan officer, attached a document outlining internal fraud, restricted access, and signature forgery. Professional, precise, omission by design. An hour later, the operating account was frozen. Sloan Holdings had no lifeline, and I, Avery Sloan, was finally out. What does it mean when loyalty becomes your prison? When silence is the only language love ever spoke to you? If your own family used your name like a tool, would you take it back, even if it meant watching them fall? The Sloans thought they had written me out, but they forgot. I had always been the one keeping the ledger, and I had just closed the book. Next, the fallout begins. Secrets surface, and Avery finally takes a seat at the table, her own. The first voicemail came the next morning. I was making coffee in my new kitchen, if you could even call the open-shelved corner of my loft that, when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't saved, but one I still recognized. Gordon Beckett, Sloan Automotive's longtime accountant. His voice was breathless, frantic, cracking in places I'd never heard bend before. Avery, call me. Now. This is serious. The bank's pulling the loan. They froze the accounts. We're at risk of default. You need to fix this. Do you hear me? You have to fix this. I stood there, mug in hand, sunlight crawling slowly across the concrete floor, letting the words echo inside the quiet. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. They were scrambling. Not because they'd lost me, but because they'd never believed I would leave. By midday, my phone looked like a missed call graveyard. Logan, 11 times. My mother, 23. My father, once. He always preferred orders to explanations. There was even a text from Logan. What the hell did you do? Followed by another hours later when panic had softened into arrogance. You're overreacting. We could have handled this internally. But that word, we, no longer held any gravity. There hadn't been a we in a long, long time. That night, my mother left a voicemail I didn't expect. It wasn't angry. It was trembling. Sweetheart, she said, her voice brittle, almost fading. Your father says the bank froze everything, that they might recall the loan. Did you sign something? I called her back. Let it ring twice. I removed my name, I said simply. Her breath caught. You can't just do that. Actually, I replied, I can, and I did. She was silent. Then in a voice so low I had to lean in just to hear it through the line, she said, Avery, this affects all of us. No, I said, the words steady, measured. You made sure it didn't. I hung up. Not out of anger, but out of completion. They invited me to dinner. Langston's. The same over-decorated steakhouse where we used to celebrate birthdays, business wins, false family unity. When I walked in, 15 minutes late, on purpose, Logan was already seated, flicking through his phone like all this was beneath him. My mother's hands were folded too tightly in her lap. My father leaned forward like a CEO about to fire someone. The chair across from them sat empty, waiting, as if they still believed I could be summoned. I took my seat slowly. Neutral blouse, flat voice. Jules once told me that power doesn't yell. It arrives, unapologetically. Logan's some lingering performance of chivalry or guilt. Thanks for coming. I didn't come for you, I replied, and I meant it. Martin's eyes bored into mine. You made your point. No, I said, placing a sealed envelope on the table. The bank made it. I just stopped protecting your lie. His jaw twitched. My mother shifted like she wanted to speak but didn't dare. We're trying to hold this together, Martin said. You think you're punishing us, Avery, but you're punishing the legacy your grandfather built. I felt something sharp twist in my chest. Not regret, but the ache of all the times I had confused obligation for belonging. Grandpa built a garage, I said softly. You turned it into a dictatorship, Logan scoffed. We gave you everything. You gave me a job, I replied. Not a voice. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clean, like a room exhaling the last lie it had been holding. Then my mother finally spoke, the words barely more than a whisper. What do you want, Avery? That was the question, wasn't it? Not revenge. I had already taken that. What I wanted now was ownership of my life, my future, my name. I slid the envelope forward. This is a signed affidavit. I've withdrawn from the company loan, board, and all business operations. You'll never use my name again. Martin opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. I'm not finished. I took a breath. I'm also submitting an anonymous tip to the state auditor. There are funds missing, vendors unpaid, payroll inconsistencies. I looked at Logan. You might want to check the invoices labeled marketing testing. You were sloppy. His face flushed red, lips tightening like he wanted to lash out. You're destroying us over ego. I'm not destroying anything. I said as I stood. I'm just removing the illusion that I was ever part of it. And then, as I turned toward the door, my father, Martin Sloan, who had never begged for anything in his life, said the one word I never expected to hear. Avery, please? I didn't turn around. You left me a voicemail, I said. I'm just agreeing with you. Formally. What do we owe the people who raised us when what they raised us into was silence? If walking away means peace, but also abandonment, who gets to call it betrayal? The Sloans thought I was just a name on a document, but now they'll have to learn how loud a ghost can be. 3 months later, a plain white envelope arrived at my new address. No return name, just the bank's logo and a tracking barcode printed in cold institutional font. I knew what it was before I opened it. I sat at my desk anyway, fingers hovering above the seal, letting the moment stretch longer than it needed to. When I finally pulled the paper free, the language was clean, merciless, and final. This letter confirms that the commercial loan associated with Avery Sloan has been formally withdrawn and restructured. No further obligation remains. No action required. No apology. No thank you. Just closure. I placed the letter in a folder marked complete and slid it into the back of my filing cabinet. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed deeper than I had in years. Outside, the Seattle sky was just beginning to flirt with spring. Pale light filtered through my loft's tall windows. The hum of the city drifted up like a promise that the world was still turning, and I was no longer trapped under anyone else's momentum. My loft was modest, a converted textile space with exposed brick and floorboards that creaked like they had stories of their own. But it was mine. I didn't decorate much, only what felt necessary. One framed photo of a coastline I'd never been to, a coffee mug from grad school, and a candle by the window that I lit each night without fail. A ritual, a signal to myself that the day was over and I had survived it. I'd started consulting again, quietly. Nothing flashy, no LinkedIn announcements, just word of mouth, mostly women-led startups looking to avoid the same traps I'd lived through. Silent equity, invisible labor, names signed without voices heard. I didn't pitch transformation. I offered navigation. A way through, a way out. I hadn't spoken to Logan since the dinner at Langston's. Not once, but I'd seen the headlines. Sloan Automotive faces scrutiny amid financial review. A quiet column in a local business digest. I hadn't leaked it, but I knew who had. Jules had always believed in well-timed truth. A month after the article ran, Logan's name disappeared from the company's website. 2 weeks later, Diane sent a card. No return address, just a handwritten note inside that read, "You were always braver than me." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that not every door needs to be opened again just because someone knocks. Martin never reached out again, not directly. But I heard from mutual contacts that he'd taken a leave of absence, citing stress and personal betrayal in a memo to staff. I didn't feel satisfaction, only confirmation that even after all this, he still didn't understand that what collapsed wasn't a legacy. It was a lie. And yet, there was one thing I hadn't expected. One voicemail from Gordon Beckett. I almost deleted it on instinct, but something made me press play. His voice was smaller this time. Not panicked, not angry, just tired. "Avery," he said, "I should have said something. Years ago. I saw what they were doing. I saw how they used you, and I didn't stop it, because it was easier not to, because I thought, maybe you were okay with it. You never made noise. But now I know silence isn't the same as peace." He paused. "I hope you're okay. I hope you build something better." I saved that one. Just that one. One night, while reviewing a contract for a new client, a Black-owned logistics startup out of Detroit, I paused over a familiar clause. Secondary signatory required. I almost skipped it, but something in me tightened. I picked up the phone and called the founder directly. She sounded young, determined, exhausted. I told her to take that clause seriously. I walked her through the risks. I gave her my templates. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked when she said, "Nobody's ever explained it to me like that." I smiled. Now they will. Spring deepened. Seattle turned green. My loft felt less like a place I landed and more like a place I chose. I bought a second chair, not because I expected company, but because space meant something now. I started taking long walks without headphones, letting the noise of the world replace the noise that used to live in my head. I even started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Not about the Sloans, not directly, just about the moments no one talks about, the almost decisions, the quiet exits, the courage it takes to remove yourself from a story without burning the page. And then one day, it came full circle. A message request on an old social media account I hadn't touched in years, from a girl I didn't know, or thought I didn't. Her name was Anna. She said she worked briefly for Sloan Automotive, said she was dismissed after questioning a budget line, said she found an archived version of my resignation letter online and just wanted to say, "Thank you." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back one line. "You're not difficult. You're just finally visible." That night, I lit the candle by the window. The loft was quiet. The world outside went on, unaware that I had once almost vanished in plain sight. But now, I was here, no longer holding up someone else's name, no longer auditioning for a seat I never wanted, just alive, free, unapologetically mine. What did this story awaken in you? Did you ever have to walk away from something you once thought defined you? Comment 100. If you felt this story, tell us which country you're watching from. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching Life Stories.